next, we have Bethany Nicole on Unveiling the Black Moon Lilith and tapping into your hidden feminine gifts.
Awesome. Hi, guys. I'm Bethany. I'm an author, astrologer, and relationship expert, and I'm going to chat with you a little bit about the Black Moon Lilith. So I too am going to share my screen, and I'm sorry, I always have a zillion tabs open, so you're just going to have to work with me on that. All right. So I think the best way to probably show it is to just kind of dive into the chart a little bit. And this happens to be my chart. So I'm going to show you kind of where you can find the Black Moon Lilith in yours and what she kind of represents. So the Black Moon Lilith is not actually a moon. She's not actually a star. She's actually a lunar space. So it's basically the dark side of the moon. It's the lunar space that's the furthest from the Earth. And that's exactly kind of what she represents, right? Is the shadow side of ourselves and of the feminine. Where you see Lilith as far as the actual archetype, she shows up in biblical stories. Her myth is that she was actually the first partner of Adam and that they were made from the same dirt, and then she refused to be submissive, so she was cast out, and then he created Eve, or Eve was created from his rib. So the entire archetype of that myth and legend is really that she was kind of the equal, and that was kind of exiled. So that's really kind of what she represents in us too, are the empowered feminine aspects that maybe are not applauded by our family, by society, by ourselves for various reasons. And so they become exiled. But within that, within those shadow aspects, is usually the gold, right? It's usually some of our most interesting aspects of ourselves. And so that's kind of where we tune into her a little bit to see, where we've exiled, what we've exiled, and how we can use that and reclaim it to find what our actual gifts are and what we need to do to bring those back to the forefront. Because when we think about, and with the Lilith archetype, what is being exiled, it could be intuitive abilities, it could be a sexual empowerment, it could be, language skills, it can be all kinds of things that are actually really powerful gifts, but for various reasons, maybe our family didn't applaud them, or society kind of, shamed us for them. And even, with the mothering wound, other feminine aspects, if you experienced a mean girl situation in high school, you could really begin to exile some of those portions of yourself of not wanting to be seen, not wanting to be in the spotlight, different things like that. But those are actually really powerful for us in stepping into who we are and what we can bring. So those are kind of the things that might end up in our Black Moon Lilith exile pile. And the way that we can find them is to look in our chart. So this is what she looks like. She's a little crescent moon with a cross underneath her, and she is the Black Moon. And so what you want to look for with her is you want to see kind of, there's a variety of things, but mainly you want to see what house she's in and what sign she's under, because that's going to give you a lot of information right off the bat about what gifts or secrets she might hold that you can further access. So for me in my chart, this makes complete sense with everything I do. But she lives in the 12th house, which is the house of karma, esoterica. It's ruled by Pisces, which is really kind of the sign of the psychic and the underlying dream space and subconscious. So that's where she is in my house. And she lives under Leo as well, which is the sign of leadership, being seen, being in the spotlight. So what that kind of would translate to is kind of like that fear of being seen, right? It's that quintessential, what they call the witch wound, which is you have these gifts, but you don't really want them to be seen because you're afraid of being exiled, ridiculed, burned at the stake, whatever terrible things might have happened in past generations or past lives, or whatever you believe. You can really see that even through maybe like an epigenetic piece, there are ways that something that happened to ancestors could maybe trace its way down to us as well. And so that's really how it shows up for me. It took me a long time to really step into this space of saying, yes, I have these intuitive gifts. Yes, I have these astrological gifts. And it took me a long time to really be able to step into that and be on platforms where I just openly shared that. I really danced around it for a very long time, as I think a lot of us tend to do. But for me, it really lived in that space of being seen and being known for these specific gifts, especially living in that 12th house of esoterica and Pisces. And so that's really where you can kind of find her. You also want to look how she relates to other places in your chart, because I don't happen to have other planets in that house. But if you did, if you had something like Venus also, with her, that could indicate that it shows up in your relationships, that it shows up in your relationship to the physical world of luxury or money. You can also kind of look where Pisces, whatever you have going on in Pisces, can also give you an indication of where those gifts are that relate to her. So for me, you can see I have Pisces in my 7th house, literally the intuition of relationships, which is exactly what I do, right? Like I'm an intuitive about relationships. So you can see where those would kind of combine with themselves. You can also look in various places as far as if you feel like your gifts are something that you want to share as an offering. You can also look in places like your 2nd house, which is your money house. As you can see in my chart, again, it makes perfect sense. My 2nd house is in Libra, the sign of partnerships, and make money helping people with their relationships. So you can kind of see how our charts really tell a story of what we're capable of, what these gifts might be, and where we might be holding ourselves back. Because for me, in this chart representation, having all of these gifts is great, but if no one knows I have them, how can I fully access them or share them? But where you can see that wounding is growing up in a family or a situation where it wasn't good to be seen. It was attacked to be seen, having friend groups that did the same thing. You can see how those kind of gave me the places in my life to learn how to recapture that feminine energy and realize the more I stand in my authority, the more I stand in my gifts, actually, the more powerful that is. And the less of attacks that happen because you're being authentic. When you're inauthentic, you're unaligned and you're not really standing in your true power. So that's actually where we get more of the witch wound, is when we stay below our own gifts and access. So yeah, it can show up again. It just happened to be in the witch wound house in mine, but it can show up in all kinds of places. That could show up, especially if it shows up with Cancer, that can really indicate kind of that mother wound where, maybe we don't want to outshine our mother. We're in competition with her in some subconscious way. We feel maybe it's disloyal to be bigger than she is, or to do something that maybe she always wanted to do. Another one I see a lot coming in is it presenting in the house of, or presenting in Virgo. And Virgo is, again, about being really precise in language and being very understood, because a lot of people really experience that level of misunderstanding, especially in the world of spirituality and especially in the world of gifts. Because if you're saying, oh, I'm an intuitive, oh, I'm a psychic, or I work with the moon, then there are people who are just not going to understand that. And it can be very hurtful to have that coming at you of like, oh, you're a bad witch, or oh, you're a psychic, prove it. Like whatever it is, that can really cause us to feel very misunderstood. And so with Black Moon Lilith showing up in Virgo, which for whatever reason, this generation, it seems I see it there a lot, that can really talk about precision in your language, precision in what you call yourself, precision in what you represent, and precision in what you're communicating to clients. And so the more you kind of tune into that and access it and really empower yourself through that, that's where you kind of reclaim those gifts that have maybe been shadowed, maybe been exiled. And really the chart is just an amazing way to kind of fast track it and see. But most likely the chart is just kind of reflecting things that are already coming up in your life. When I tell people like, oh, this is where it's presenting and this is probably how it's showing up, they're like, I knew it. Like they always seem to know because the patterning is already there. So really the chart is just kind of reflecting things back to people that they generally already know. And you kind of already know a lot of where your gifts lie, what you're naturally good at. Even if it's just kind of that hint of it, a lot of people say, like, yeah, I'm just really good at telling people how to work within their relationships, or like, I'm really good at telling people what to do with their careers, or I just kind of know how people are feeling. And, or I'm a really good writer, just all of these gifts that we kind of know, but we've sort of put them on that shadow side. That's where the Black Moon Lilith can really show us, like, what is holding us back and how can we tune into that to transmute it into something higher, so that we can share these gifts, so that we can step out in the spotlight, or heal that mother wound, or write that book, or whatever it is that we've been holding back. This is where we can really tune into that and find ways to harness that power and use it for our authenticity, and use it to move us forward instead of holding us back. So that's a little bit about her. She's layers and layers deep. Obviously, there's degrees and different houses, and that's where the one-on-one sessions really kind of dive into that. But this just gives you sort of an idea of, right off the bat, if all you did was look where your Black Moon Lilith was and what house and what sign, you've got a treasure trove of information about what gifts and things you might be hiding and exiling, and how you can really grab onto those and own them. Because that's really what we want to do with the Black Moon Lilith, is bring her to light and stand in that embodiment and that empowerment, because that's really what she craves. That's what she is, right? She's that archetype of the empowered feminine, whether anyone else likes it or not. She's just uniquely herself. So that's a little bit about that. And then I also offer the freebie of how to create your own manifestation space, which helps you, especially with if you're calling in partnership. I kind of aim all of my stuff a little bit towards the relationship realm, whether that's even a better partnership with yourself. That space can help you create that. And I also have sessions and relationship resets where we go in and dive into some of these issues a little bit deeper. But yeah, that's just like a little nugget of the Black Moon Lilith.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Bethany. I really appreciate that insight.